Hello, everyone. Good to be back for this session of advanced storyline techniques. I do have a presentation, and I'll go ahead and share it. So I've titled this one "Interactive Puzzles with Storyline," and puzzles really an advanced way of building interactivity into your courses. So think of think of ways you can use puzzles. And I'll be interested to see if anyone has used puzzles in the past and what's your experience. But first, let's even define puzzles, right? Um, yeah, so puzzles really are just think of it as questions. So anything can be a puzzle, really. Anything that causes the learner to be puzzled and wanted to know more or to solve a problem can be considered a puzzle. Now, how we use it in storyline or e-learning is can be a little different, can vary is what I'm trying to say. So this is pretty much the content that we'll go over today. I've broken it down into 6 parts. The first is the discussion to what we're having right now, why use puzzles. And we'll talk about accessibility, and then we'll look at some examples. So the rest are just examples of puzzles that I've built, and we'll go over how to build those puzzles. So why do we use puzzles? One reason is to increase engagement and problem solving within your courses. So when people talk about interactivity, it's not just about clicking reveals, or it's also ways to engage the learner. How can we engage them on the topic of the subject that we're trying to teach? How do we get them to think in a certain line or apply the situation to their own, to themselves, and problem solve? Um, Now, one issue that you may run into when building puzzles is content accessibility. So how do we make puzzles accessible? And the current technologies that we have, including Storyline, they're not there yet as far as making puzzles accessible. So think of your common puzzle types like drag and drops, click and reveals. Those have limited accessibility when they're being used on a screen reader, for example. So just something to consider as we build puzzles. How do we make those puzzles accessible? And I also think it's preventing more people from using puzzles because you're always thinking about the learner, especially if you work in a large organization or a global organization, for example. The likelihood that there will be people who need screen readers increases, right? So if you have more than 30 people, I think is my just rule of thumb, the likelihood increases after that number that there's someone who needs some form of accessibility or another, especially for as the ranks. So if you're thinking about leaders and managers, you kind of expect them to maybe not need accessibility as much as folks who are just climbing into the ranks. So that's, but don't quote me on that. We always want to train for all learners and not just one learner type. So I think we can move on into now. I've compiled 4 puzzles that we'll build today, or at least look at how they were built. So maybe not build it as much. And the first one is an interesting one. So it's called MGM puzzles and MGM jigsaw. And I shared this on LinkedIn a while back. I don't know if anyone saw that, but it's one where I created this jigsaw puzzle of the hotel that's going to be used for DevLand this year in Las Vegas. It's a conference, and that's going to load in a second. So this is the MGM puzzle that I've been talking about. And just to give you an idea, I'm going to run through the puzzle real quickly, just so you see how it works. So when you first, and I'm assuming everyone on this call is probably a Storyline user, advanced user. So maybe you've tried Storyline in the past and just wanted to know more. So there will be some basics that I won't go over, like how to add drag and drops, but instead I'm going to show you what that could look like. So here's the jigsaw puzzle. And when you first open it, what pops up is a light box that's telling you, okay, you can click on clues to see, this is just one way of guiding the user, right? So I've tried to highlight some certain aspects of the picture they can look at before attempting to take the puzzle. So talking about the hotel building, the statue, all of that. So when they click on start, so this is the reference image pretty much. And when they click on start, it's all scattered, right? So they have to fit the pieces of the puzzle together. And I'm going to attempt to do this in 1 minute if someone can time me. I built this, so I should know how to do it, right? So my 1 minute is going to start now. This is going to be difficult, but I feel like I can do it. All right. Um, wow. Did I do it? No. All right. So I'm going to, let's talk about how I built this. So pretty much, I'm going to build a blank slide. I'll start with a blank slide. And the slide is, I'm just going to make that white so we can see it better. Don't worry, I'm not going to build a whole thing, just some aspects of it. And so how did I make the puzzle pieces, right? So the puzzle pieces is just, the way I made that was go into Google and I just searched jigsaw puzzle. So, and forgive me if whatever comes up, this is just a freelance search, right? So I picked up something like this and, just copied this image, took it to Photoshop. I'm just going to copy this instead, take it to a program like Photoshop. I actually have it open here. So add a photo. So let's say, and just imagine with me for 1 second. So imagine that you have a photo underneath this and then you select. So it can be a tedious process, but I feel like if I remember correctly, I found a program that lets me just create the puzzle pieces and add each one to a layer. I think it was a Photoshop program. If I find that program, I will share it, but you can also do it manually. So just export each piece, kind of delete the rest, and it exports each one of those pieces. So that's how I got the puzzle pieces. So they're all saved as ping files, and they're all numbered differently. So I'm just going to pick up say 4 of those pieces and add them to this plain timeline that we have, right? And you notice that I added drop shadow on each one just to give it a bit of realism. So what's really happened here is these puzzle pieces are just part of a drag and drop interaction. And before I do that drag and drop, if you're familiar with how drag and drops work, you have one piece that you're trying to drag over to the other piece. And if it's a match, you call it success, right? So I'm just going to, these same pieces will be the drop items. So if I copy that, paste, and if you want to paste it over, if you want to paste in a way that it doesn't go out of place, you can just do Control Shift and D. So that places it directly. It's like pasting in place. So with that said, I now have 2 sets of photos, right? So I'm going to make one of those photos the drop item. So let's assume I want to make the ones beneath the drop items. I can hide these. And I'll go ahead and hide these. So now you have the bottom ones, right? And the bottom ones, you can make them, you can go to format and make them transparent. So they're pretty much going to form your drop items. And it doesn't matter where these end up. So the top ones, those ones you can drag them to the side, so you still have your other items. So you have your drag items and you have your drop items, right? So we're clear on that. And then you go to insert and you go to convert to freeform. And you're just selecting drag and drop and okay. So you're converting it to freeform essentially. And now you're just matching the pieces. So you're matching, say, if you look on the right, you will see how it's indicated. So you're matching that piece with the corresponding piece, which is this one. You're matching the next piece with the corresponding piece, which is that one. You mentioned the bottom piece with the corresponding piece, which is that one. Then you mentioned the last piece with the corresponding piece, which is that one. Yeah, so pretty simple. Would you agree? It's simple once you think about how it's created, right? So if you want to preview this and test your logic, all you're doing is dragging. So obviously there's going to be some instruction for the learner to know where to kind of drag things to, and you know, they just start to fit in those pieces, and that's it. Like, yeah. And you can do things like return the item to the start point if it's dropped outside of, I mean, maybe the correct drop target, for example, so that also, because your goal is not to fail your learner, is to help them learn the process. All right, we'll move along to the next one. So you're pretty much repeating this process. So that's all this is, right? You're pretty much repeating that process. So you have more pieces. That's the only difference. And remember, you have the drop state and the drag item, and you have a puzzle. It's really that simple. So let's move on to the next puzzle. And the next one, as I recall it, is Catch Luna. This one is really simple. It's and you'll see what it looks like in a second. But let me try to find it and play it. It's this one. So pretty much what's happening is, and you may have seen this on social media somewhere. Maybe, you know, what's happening is you're trying to fit this fairy into this placeholder. So you try to stop it when it's it's really a very simple game. Definitely not drag and drops. So we're using motion paths for this one. So if you've tried to build motion paths before, it's really just animation. So you're adding you're adding a motion path to using lines, and that's just moving from side to side. So what's making it stop is when this is clicked, pause the timeline, right? So pause timeline on this slide when the user clicks picture tree, which is this one. And each time it moves, it's jumping to this next slide so it's not really back and forth on the same slide. It's jumping to the next slide when it gets to the end. And then here we have the same motion going back, and then it jumps back to the first slide at the end. Another way this could have been built is using video. So let's say a basic slide, I can bring in a video. Now, I'll see if I can find a quick video. Yeah, so maybe I bring in an animation like this. If I were to play this, I can have that same motion going back and forth, and then when if I click on the video, it stops, right? So everything could be built inside of that animation, where using a tool like Vyond or any other tool, like I could have that motion going back and forth, because in Storyline, if you clicked on a video, it stops.
That's
but
correct.
The only problem with that is there's no way to record what's happening. There's no way to score the letter if they get close. Even with this, there's no way to. I mean, there can be a way, but currently there's no way to score how close the letter is, except you start to add some shapes. Maybe you have when this object intersects with this object, and maybe that other object, maybe you have two of these, and say when it's intersecting with this and this, then you can score 10. There are ways to do it, but it just gets a bit more complicated. But yeah, that's Catch Lumen. Let me just do a quick explanation of triggers. Triggers are different from variables. So triggers really are, what's the action, what's happening, what's making this then happen, right? So for something like this, let me make this white so we can see it. You can have two shapes. So think of a circle that's intersecting with a square. So pretty much you want something to happen when something happens, and maybe the square intersects with or maybe the user clicks, the different things that could start that action. So here's what you want to focus on: the action, what's triggering that action to happen. So you can change state of objects, you can show layers, you can hide layer, you can do any of these functions when, actually this isn't the trigger. So this is what you want to happen. And this is telling where it should happen. Usually it's going to be on this slide. So slide 3, right? Or maybe not, depending on what you pick, right? So let's do a simple one. Let's give this object, say, different states. So you have triggers and you have states. Um, let's let's create a new state by clicking on edit state. So you go to this and you click edit state. You click on new state, and let's say select it. So this is the same object inside of the same object. So it's just different states. So, sometimes you're happy, sometimes you're sad. That's the way to think about this. So your normal state is this. Maybe you're just casual, and then now you're sad. What's a good color for sad? Let's say red. So, so now this state has, sorry, you want to make sure you're clicking inside of the state. So I didn't do that right there, but you want to make sure you're inside of edit state and you have this selected, right? So if you have this selected, you see the border around it, you can change that to red. So when you go back to normal, it's blue, red. So you have the sad state, you have the normal state, and maybe you have the happy state, right? So, and you can rename your layers. So happy, happy could be green, right? That could be a good color for happiness. So, all right, so you have happy. Maybe let's not use selected in this case. Let's just make that equal and say sad. So they're inbuilt states. These are all inbuilt states, and they have different ways that they show up. So, but then you can create a custom state, which is just, there's no inbuilt function for that one. It's just going to be whatever you assign to it. So sad, remember we want to make that kind of reddish. And then, so you have happy, you have sad, you have normal, and hit done. So this has all of these states, but this has no state. The way to copy this state to this state is to click on that and go to format. Oh, sorry, go to home. Maybe not format. I'm not seeing it. There's a format painter. Yeah, this one. So double click that, and you can apply that to this guy without having to set up all of it. Like it just automatically translates to that. So both of these have all of those states now. Now, if you want to create a simple trigger to maybe say change this, maybe you want happiness to be contagious, right? So let's say you want this guy to be happy when this guy interacts with, this other shape. So you can say change the state of rectangle to happy when the object intersects with the target object. So pretty much you're thinking about what you're trying to do and what's causing it to happen. Change the state of rectangle one, set state to happy. And you only have the state because you created that state for it. If you didn't create happy, it's not going to be an option. When the object intersects with the target slide. So object, what's intersecting, the oval is intersecting with the rectangle. And you don't need conditions, except maybe you want to add some extra layer of conditions, but in this case, we don't. So you can hit OK. And, so by the time you preview this, you're just telling it to, okay, so we have to make it a drag object because there's no way to, it's a static object. So you can click on insert and make it a drag and drop. I feel like I'm making this more complex than it used to be. Even without selecting anything, it's anytime you make things drag and drop, it's movable now. Okay, maybe not. Let's change this to oval. And maybe there is no drop target. It's just, but making this draggable, you've made it a drag item. So it's now a drag item. And you can say drag this, and it makes that, it turns that to green based upon that trigger. So yeah, so think about, I mean, and this, it will make sense if this started out as happy, right? And here's where you can do that. You can go to initial state and make that happy. So now you can make a case for how this happy person, and it makes sense to make this sad, right? Just follow my train of thought here. So now you have this happy person meets this sad person, makes them happy. Case closed. That could be a story in itself, right? Now think about doing that with, you know, um, changing that to, so you insert the characters instead, just to bring some realism to it, right? So, you have this happy person who meets with this you know sad person, right? So then it starts to make sense, right? So we can delete this other guys at this point. So you can have this. Well, she already looks happy, so there's no need to. So we just need to give him a happy state, right? So let's say it's happy on the state, and all you need to do is change the pose to one that's positive. Yeah, so maybe he's happy. No, all right. Looks like my storyline stopped working. All right, so yeah. So the same thing, you make this drag and drop. Well, it's already a drag and drop. You just have to assign that fresh character as a draggable item. So, and then you have to write a trigger that says change the state of character to an object intersect. Storyline is so smart. It already kind of knows where I'm going since I've already done it once. Uh, same thing, just with people now instead of shapes. So it brings more context to what you're trying to do. Oops. Okay, so that did not work. I'm not sure why. So set state of character to okay, I didn't change that to happy. That's why that didn't work. So I just want to preview this slide. All right. Okay. But there are several uses for triggers, not just that. So you may want to kind of explore, play around, and see what comes. But let's move on to the next puzzle, which is this sound puzzle that I've built. Like for this one, it's called Sound Puzzle. This was one of my earlier projects. It's pretty much just, and let me make sure I'm sharing my sound so you can hear it. Sharing sound. So this one is pretty much for kids, or could be for adults too, but it's uh it's a way to help learners identify music objects and the sound that they make. And I'll show you how it was built in a second. So so immediately this you already know this is a drag and drop. You're trying to,
Trumpet.
so I cut out these pieces with Photoshop and added drop shadow.
Drum.
And from what you know now, like from the jigsaw puzzle, you know how this drop item was made already. It's just the same shape, and then give it a gradient so it looks like it's not really there, but it's there. But at least it, unlike the jigsaw puzzle where there was no indication where the drop item was, this one is already telling the learner like you need to drop this item here,
Piano.
right? Because again, you're just trying to guide them through the lesson,
Acoustic guitar.
you know. But one problem that I'm running into here is, so I have the total score. It's adding 1 to the total score every time I drop these guys. But what if I brought the same item back? It keeps adding scores, right? So that's one challenge I have. And I'll tell you how I fixed it. So
Violin. Tuba.
yeah, so this has many applications. You can use it for anything. And just to go over the triggers real quickly, here's where you add not triggers, variables. So this was the trigger, and this is the variables section. So variables, you're just adding a new variable. And for example, what I added was the score, which is just a way to show the learner's progress. And I can add that again. So let's say score 2, for example, is a number, and the default value is 0. And the way to display that number is to say, you could insert a text box and say, score 2. It could be total score. I already have total score, so that's why I'm naming this one score 2. And you can increase the size. You could change the color to make it more visible. Sorry, I can't really see my top menu in this view, but yeah, I'll make this larger. And what I can do is, to display that text, all you have to do is add the percentage sign and the name of the variable, so score 2, and end it with a percentage sign. And that's telling Storyline to display that variable. So if I click out, it's going to, now it's kind of registering as a variable display. So it's not going to show that percentage sign. It's going to show whatever I ask it to show. So if I were to say, let's just add it here. So if I were to write a trigger to say add, so adjust variable is what I'm looking for. Adjust variable, add, first you need to change this. So score 2. So I'm saying add value 1 to score 2 when maybe object is dragged over. So object dropped on. So, and I've already set up these puzzles, right? So I just look for one of those puzzles, say picture 6, and match it with its corresponding drop item. So matching this with this is what I just did. So 6 and 11, this and this, and then hit OK. So the next time that I preview this, besides what's already been set up, which is the total score. So this is going to change to 1, and this is going to change to 1 because I just added this just as an example, right? So if I were to drag this to this and drop it,
Trumpet.
does that make sense? So that's how variables are built. And one way to stop it from continuing to count every time you drop an item could be, say, change the state of this to disabled. When that drops, you can say change the state to disabled, so you're no longer able to move it away from there. But yeah, that's how simple puzzles can be. But let's move on to one other one that's a little more challenging, but equally good. And it's a fun one too. If you recall this game, it's called Pin the Tail. I'm pretty sure I played that when I was in secondary school. But if anyone remembers it, it's you're trying to pin the donkey's tail. So someone draws a donkey on the board, and you're given a tail to kind of pin it where you think you're kind of blindfolded in some cases. So let's preview this entire page and see what that looks like. All right. So pin the donkey's tail. Let's try the easy mode first. And that's just saying, pin the donkey's
All right,
tail.
that's more like it. Shrek and Donkey on another whirlwind adventure. Ain't no stopping us now. Woo!
Yeah, that's from Shrek. So if you want to go blindfold, you can click on that, and now you can't see the donkey, right? So you have to guess. Just imagine you're blindfolded and trying to guess where the tail goes.
Oh, you almost had it. You gotta be
The
quick.
chances are quite less when you're blindfolded. So let's go back home and try the hard way. This one is saying drag the donkey's tail to where you think the donkey's hiding. And he can
Oh, you almost had it.
drag it anywhere, but it's not there. So you can also ask for clues, right? So this is a clue. It's showing you where the donkeys are, but you don't know which donkey,
Oh, you
right?
almost had it. You gotta be quicker than that.
So what's really happening here is I'm using a random variable to set the position of the horse. So there's a random variable that's been set that's showing where the position that's telling the horse to get to its normal state when, maybe user clicks continue or start. And I'll show you what that looks like. So let's say, for example, this guy over here, I have different states for it. So I have different states for this box, for each box. And so, so you have the normal state where I've either removed the donkey completely or made it transparent so you can't see it like that. And then you have the donkey state where this is kind of like the normal state. And then you have the tail state where, this tail that you're moving, that's not what actually is showing. This is because the way this is set up, the tail doesn't need to end up in the exact spot. It could just be, as long as it intersects with that box, it's going to show the tail state. And it's really simple because you're only setting it up for one and you're replicating that same thing, 5 times. So you only have to worry about that one. And all you're doing for that one is setting up the normal state, the donkey state, and the tail state. What's controlling it is a trigger. So you're saying, random donkey is the trigger that's being used throughout this course. So you're saying set random donkey to random number between 1 and 5 when the timeline starts on this slide. So you set, so it's not going to go anywhere beyond 1 and 5. It's going to pick one random number each time. So if it picks 2, then this 2 becomes your active drop state. If it's 3, this 3 becomes your active drop state, right? And if this intersects with this, when this has been picked as the correct random number, then you have a match, is what it is. So it's a bit more complex, but the idea is needed, if I can say that. But you can set these up however you want, and you can think of a number of use cases for an interaction like this. So I want to show you the last one. It's really quite interesting, the last one, in my opinion, anyway. It's called the I think I have it open. So this last interaction we're going to go over, it's called African Safari. And I built it for the storyline challenges. And I'll just play it, and then, we can discuss it. So let me play it real quickly. And I see that it's not even open yet. Let me go on the website. So it's this one.
Welcome to the African Safari. As you drive through the jungle, your mission is to spot and identify animals that appear along the road. Use your mouse or touchpad to select the animals, then select their correct name from the options provided. Try to identify as many animals as possible before reaching the end of the trail. Good luck!
What animal is this? Looks like a lioness. All right. So you identify the lion, you get the lioness, you get 10 points. Then you try to identify which animal it is. If you were to click in giraffe, you fail, but it gives you the feedback. You move on, you keep driving. You run into a panda, you identify, you get 10 points. If you get it correct, you get 5 more points. That's choose the wrong answer. You don't get any score when you do that. So now let's pick the right one.
Now we're talking. You're practically a jungle.
You're getting
whisperer.
feedback as you keep playing. The same thing. You're getting 10 points. You're picking up 5 extra points. Oh, you ran into an elephant. Sloth.
Wow, even a sloth could have seen that one. Impressive.
And you see your score, your total score is increasing over here. You can see it here. And that's it. So
better luck next time.
Yeah, so you also get feedback based upon all right, so let's discuss that. How do you think that was built? Or does anyone have any thoughts on what they just saw?
Yeah, I actually like the video part of where the car was moving. Is that a video or
Yeah, so I just found this footage on YouTube and used it. It's pretty much um, it's a video, but it's a looping video. So
okay?
it wasn't actually looping, but in storyline, it's just that one. It's just that one. It plays once and that's it. So, but I've used it on multiple slides. So I use it on 3 different slides. So it looks like you're moving the whole time, but you're really
Okay.
not. Yeah, and this truck was one. It's just a picture, right? So I just added that picture, so it looks like the truck is actually turning, but it's not. It's an illusion. Yeah, but the
Interesting.
video is. So if I were to hide the video, if I were to hide that truck and play this, this is the video. This is just a video I found on YouTube. Yeah. So it's a 3D render. It's not an actual
Welcome to
video.
the
It's
African
just
Safari.
it's a
As you
render
drive through the jungle,
animation.
your mission is to spot and identify animals.
see.
So it's just moving through different
Use your mouse or
parts.
touchpad to select the animals, then select their correct name from the options provided. Try to identify
But
as
the
many
combination of the instructions and everything and the truck is what's making it look, like
Yeah,
the
realistic.
learner, yeah, the learner seems to be in control, almost like they can turn wherever they want to, where.
Yeah.
And then the other challenge is, using static photos instead of video or animation. If you use a static photo like this, and if the scene continues to move, it will be very obvious. Like, that's a picture. It's staying in place. It starts to look very fake. But the way I've set it up is it pauses, right? So when it pauses, you're really not thinking. You're not thinking, oh, it's static. You're just thinking that's an animal. That's what you're thinking about, right? For example, this one, right? So you're not thinking. You're just thinking, oh, that's an animal. You're not thinking, oh, it's a picture. And when you click, then it fades away, right? Not like you ran over the animal or anything, but
That's true.
Yeah.
So if I may ask, why did you choose to use one slide instead of several or layers?
So why did I choose to use just one slide for everything? Yeah. So all of the action happens in one slide. So I didn't want to make the course too long or too boring where it's jumping slide to slide. Like I just felt like I could achieve all of that in this one slide. So I have different buttons set up. And like I've shared, this one uses a lot of triggers. It's just got lots of things going on where, things are controlling. But, the purpose really is not to, make this intimidating for anyone or challenging. It's really just to, help you see how far you can take the program, right? So, learning programs like this, they're not built to be gamified or, there are limits to it, but at the same time, you just continue to push that limit. No.
This is awesome. How long did it take you to conceptualize this, though? Because I know that's where the real work is.
Actually, this took me less than a day to start and finish. Yeah, I'd say maybe 12 hours at the most, but that's also, because I just I'm usually always building, right? So just taking concepts from places, or if I go to an arcade or something, like I found this concept in an arcade and just thought, oh, I can build that. Like, and that's how it started. Like, okay, I can find this video and, just Googled footage of a safari, right? I forget what I Googled exactly, but you can just say, oh, safari footage, loop something, and that, you can, you can just find, sometimes it works out where you find this one video that just makes everything make sense. And sometimes,
Yeah.
without the video, this wouldn't happen at all. Like, yeah. So that's, and with the scoring, it's just, so I've used multiple audio on this one slide. And then I used, different cue points. I use different cue points throughout this. So, I'm saying play this sound when, or play this feedback when. So sometimes you don't have to use layers, right? So all of these sounds, they're just added to my slide where, you can have, say, let's say, for example, you bring in this sound and it's just, it could even be one that starts from the very beginning. Yeah, depending on where your cue point is. So let's say that sound starts from, let's say it starts from the beginning, right? It doesn't mean that it's going to play when the timeline starts. You can control when it plays. You can say, play. You can say play this, play media when the object intersects, when you set that parameter, then it plays at a certain time. So, you see how it turns, like, becomes different. Yeah. I hope that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that's, I think that's all I have for today. If you have any questions about how any of this was built or want to discuss it further, you can reach me on any of these channels, and I'll be willing to answer your question. All right.